little bit of a smart ass, and I have perfected this in such a way where it comes off as like charming almost. It adds to my charisma. You don't have to be an entertainer to be a performer, and in a job you are performing.
This is Maxim EQ, a show that pushes back on the memification of meaning. In each episode, we explore a familiar phrase through thoughtful conversation that blends unique perspectives and lived experience. Today, we're joined by Vera Lee, a talented artist-producer based in Los Angeles, to explore the idea that perception is a mirror. This was a particularly insightful conversation. We hope you enjoy it.
Now, Maxim EQ with Sam Wahl and me, Mike Baumer.
What up, Sam Wahl?
Hey, man, how are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Good.
How are you?
Hey, I'm couldn't be better. I don't know about
that's
you,
impressive.
but we're finally getting. And you can't tell because I'm in a cave right now, but the weather is just incredible outside. It's like 50 something degrees and sunny. I'm excited today. I mean, I say this every time, but I really am excited because our guest today, Vera Lee, is a person who was an employee of mine when Vera was a wee kid. So this is going back 10 plus years ago, over 10 years ago now, I think, that I met Vera. And she worked for my restaurant business. We did a lot of festival catering and craft services catering and stuff like that. But I spent a lot of time with her, especially, I guess it's not going to get me in any trouble to say this now, but I definitely had favorite employees. And I spent more time with her than I did with most of my other employees because I really enjoyed talking with her. And she taught me a lot about music because she was very music savvy and was always turning me on to what was hip and cool with the younger crowds. But at any rate, she's gone on to from hospitality and restaurant work to working in the production business. So she's doing, I think, everything from film shoots to live concert events to, all kinds of stuff. I'm sure maybe she'll tell us about it. I don't know. But she's also a musician and a music creator, a genre that I don't really understand or know much about, electronic music, but she can tell us more about that too. She's just an incredible young person. And one of those people, kind of like you and I, that having a long conversation was effortless. You know what I mean? That kind of person. So, so this is
Then
great.
she sounds like the perfect guest for Maxim EQ. So with that, why don't I go ahead and invite her to the conversation?
Yeah, let's do it.
Good morning.
Hi, Sam.
Really?
Good
Hi,
morning.
What's
Vera.
going on?
What's up,
You made it.
guys?
Yeah.
I know. I woke up early on the winter on a weekday.
Way to lower expectations right out of the gate.
I
Just
know.
kidding.
Yeah.
Well, so just for our listening audience, so that they understand what you mean by that, we're talking to Vera from Los Angeles, and this conversation is spanning the nation's time zones right now because we got Mike in Central and I'm in the East Coast time zone. So yeah, we really are just crushing it here. And that required the only one of us here that works in the music industry to get up the earliest.
Yep. I do it for you, Sam. Anything for
And
you.
I think probably it's safe to say that in LA, you're probably the only person up at this hour.
No, that's definitely not true. The traffic starts, depending on which direction you're going, the traffic starts at like 6:30 in the morning.
Gosh.
Yeah. It's pretty gnarly.
Nice to meet you, and thank you for doing this.
So we're here to talk about a maxim, and that's what we do. And when we gave you a list of maxims, you chose perception is a mirror. And I love that. I think it's going to be, I know you well enough to know that this is going to be a really juicy conversation. But I'd kind of like to start it out by asking you a question that popped into my consciousness about this, and maybe this will be a great way to kick this conversation off. Maybe not. I don't know, but I feel like this maxim is gonna hit different people differently, kind of out of the gate without processing it too much. And so my question to you is, when you hear perception as a mirror, or when you read that for the first time, would you categorize that as something that felt kind of destabilizing or off-putting a little bit, or would you categorize it as something that made you feel liberated or affirmed in some way?
I think today the answer is liberated and affirmed, but I think on different days that could be a different answer. Yeah.
I would like to give you the floor to unpack that.
Yeah,
for
please
me.
expand.
If you
Feel free.
Well, it's, I think that the biggest reason that I chose the topic, aside from it obviously being the one that spoke to me the most, is I think it's I think that's something that, like, the idea of perception, like, and our understanding of it is something that changes over time. And I don't know, like, I am now in a place in my life where, like, I can understand that really my attitude and how I'm, like, walking around the world, the energy that I'm giving off, what I'm vibrating, like, is felt around everybody around me. And you do kind of get what you put out. Like most of the time, even more than most of the time, like 99% of the time, like, if I'm having a bad day, it's because of something that's going on internally. And if I feel like the world around me is, like, also kind of giving me shit, like, that is a direct result of, like, how I am feeling. But then, like, there's days where I feel like I'm on top of the world, and then you're walking around and, you strangers are just smiling at you as you're walking by. And it really is just, like, it's kind of like self-realization. It's like acknowledgement. It's just, like, understanding that you are the master of your universe. But also, like, then you understand yourself, but then you got to apply that to everybody else. And, so if somebody is, like, being negative towards you, that is also very much like they got something going on. They're not having, like, a good time at that current moment, or, they're going through a rough patch, whatever it may be. And any negativity that's getting thrown your way is also a reflection of that person as well.
I love where you're going with this. So, I mean, clearly you're not a passive recipient of events, I mean, you're saying that right out loud, and your interpretation isn't fixed, right? But my question for you is this, like, so is this kind of like, when you buy a certain model of car, all of a sudden you noticed only that car on the road kind of thing? Or do you think that this is deeper and more connected to that? Do you think that there is some sort of, like, kind of shared vibration or consciousness or energy, around us with other humans, and that we are, is there something deeper that precedes how we interact and the kind of energy we get back from other people? You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I hate to, like, be in the middle, but, like, I feel like it's kind of a little bit of both as well. Like, for example, one day I looked outside. I was just, like, walking to my car, and then I noticed some crows, and I felt like I hadn't, like, seen crows in, like, a really, really long time, or I just, like, simply wasn't paying attention. And then I started paying attention, and I swear I saw crows every day for, like, 3 months straight. But also, like, yeah, no, we are connected. Like, that shouldn't be, like, any sort of, like, argument. Or, like, like, we're people. We're here on this earth, and whether or not you want to believe that this is, like, a tangible reality or not, and that's a whole other thing that we could go off on, like, we are absolutely, like, connected as beings, and it all is energy, and it all vibrates, and it is all felt, But I do think that it's absolutely true that if you start like paying attention to certain things, if you decide like, okay, I'm going to be out on the lookout for this, like you're going to start seeing these things, you know, it's like the whole, like out of sight, out of mind of it all. But like, if it's in your mind, then it's going to be at the forefront and you're going to be paying attention.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. I feel like you just touched on a couple of things that, correct me if I'm, if you don't see it this way, but tie back to a couple of thoughts that I had going into this session. And is I feel like there's definitely some reoccurring themes that come up during these conversations that Sam and I are having with other guests, almost regardless of what the actual maxim or adage is that we're exploring. And so let me go with this one first. You said your perception is changing, right? And it just reminded me of something that was referred to in an earlier episode where he said, and it's like, you never walk in the same river twice. Right? Because you're different, the river's different. And so that's one thing that struck me while you were sharing that with us. And then the other thing was some of the origins of this maxim in this quote that you chose. It's a little bit longer. We kind of truncated it to hopefully leave it a little bit more open to interpretation and have it be, I mean, it's far from abstract, but have it be a little less guiding, so to speak. But anyway, it's attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson, and its perception is a mirror, not a fact. And what I look on is my state of mind reflected outward. And that kind of reminded me of the whole, well, Phil brought this up, Sam, where there's a little bit of a flywheel kind of effect going on, right? Like you're being influenced by your environment, and then you're also influencing your environment at the same time. That's right. And so the Ralph Waldo Emerson thing goes to, the both sides of it, right? Like that's right. It's the energy of both sides of it, the perception of both sides of it, how you feed back into what it is that's, that you're reacting to and perceiving, the circular nature of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 100%. It's inevitable, Vera, that we end up circling back to references to other maxims and other discussions that we've had because humanity is just equal parts complex and equal parts, very predictable. The whole genre is poignant for me, especially now in my life, because I'm very mantra oriented. I'm a person who's kind of working a lot on interdisciplinary stuff just to kind of enjoy the later years of my life as a better person. And I enjoy the agency in this maxim. I enjoy that aspect of it. I feel like it's a reminder for me that I have agency at all times. And I also need to be a regulator or a negotiator between my parts and myself at all times too. I'm interested in knowing from you if you can share, for the interest of our listeners and for maybe even Mike, a little bit about kind of like your work and like what you do, and then also like how, this kind of broader mindset or awareness like helps you or is helping you evolve as a professional person.
Ooh, yeah, great question.
Yeah. So yeah, I work in event production, saying that, I'm up on the morning on a weekday in the winter. So I'm in my slow season right now. So, not as busy as I normally am. Weekends, I'm kind of like a weekend warrior till about, April-ish, and then things get crazy. But yeah, no, so I've been working in event production for, you guys were me and Sam used to work together. That was kind of my into that world. And then I started actually doing like stuff like behind the scenes. And so now I've been doing it full time since 2017. So basically a decade. And yeah, to answer the second part of your question, it's been such a journey of, I've been struggling my entire life with just like trying to be confident with like who I am. And then so like having to do that just like in your personal life, but then like taking it into like your professional life as well, where in your professional life, you kind of gotta wear a little bit of a mask to a certain degree. Like you can't let them see you sweat type deal. I think just like along the way, and like COVID really played a big part in this, like the world stopped for everybody. And I had a lot of time to really like sit back, relax, and reflect and just like kind of like figure out how I wanted to like go about my day to day and like how I wanted to like present myself and like be heard, be felt in the workplace. And like it's a confidence thing too, honestly. Like it's taken me a really long time. I'll be the first person to admit that like kind of most of like my jobs and everything like that have kind of just like fallen into my lap to a certain point. And it really wasn't until like the last like couple years where I started to get like proactive with like, oh, like these are the things that I actually like want. And like, I have like a destination I'm trying to get to. But yeah, it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, just the whole thing of understanding that like your energy is being felt, everybody's got energy that they're putting off, and like it's like, especially in the work life, like it can be a head trip. It can be a head trip when you're like doing your job, trying to just like go about your day, do your best, but then like feel like all this negative energy around you in like a professional setting. But like you just got to get to this point where you're just like, this is all noise. None of this ultimately matters. I just need to focus on what I'm doing. And I also need to be a little like proactive and loud about it because, you know, squeaky wheel gets the grease, that whole thing. Like a sad reality of life is that you can work really hard and you can do a good job and you can know you're doing a good job, but you also just can't expect somebody like who's in a higher position than you or like your boss to come along and be like, I see you and like I want to like give you a raise or like I want to give you like a higher position. Like in some cases that might happen, but you also have to be like, hey, like I'm over here, I'm doing this, and like I would like to, you know, be doing more. So yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question or not.
It's like if that's not your natural state or necessarily what you put a premium on, right? Like let's say it's the actual work and the quality of the work and the results of the work kind of thing, right? But this other thing is also really important as it relates to developing and creating new opportunities and being seen and advancing and that kind of thing. Have you found a style for doing that works for you, that's kind of like true to your personality, but also helps advance what you're trying to progress?
Oh yeah, I'm a little bit of a smart ass, and Sam can definitely attest to this, and I have perfected this in such a way where like it comes off as like charming almost, like it's like it adds to my charisma. But like I saw this movie last night. It's called Crime 101. It was very like, it was an okay film, but this like relates to what you just asked me. Like the main character in the movie is played by Liam Hemsworth. He's this guy, and you can tell in his personal life that he's like the biggest thing I noticed watching this movie is that he doesn't make eye contact with people like ever. Like he goes on a date with a woman and he's kind of like fidgeting around and like can hardly like look at her and like always like pulling with his hair. But then like once he enters into like professional mode, like once he's like doing his job, he becomes like the smoothest person like you've ever seen. Like just like straight, and like that, like, you know, the whole like mask thing, like it's almost easier when you know you're not like completely like stripped down, you know, when there's like no like when you're like in your personal life and you're no stakes, it's almost easier to be in like a situation where you're just like, okay, I have to do this, like I'm getting paid, like, you know, things are like actually like on the line, and you can like become a little bit of a different person to a certain degree. And I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to say that like I'm a different person at work.
There doesn't have to be inauthenticity to it. Both things can be true, right? I mean, you could be multidimensional.
Yeah. Like you don't have to be an entertainer to be a performer, and in a job you are performing.
Yeah, and it sounds to me also like you're a person who's very accountable about what mode you're in, especially when you're at work, how you're affecting other people, how you're serving other people. I'm guessing that you're a person who doesn't just take the way that you react to someone, your perception, as truth, that you're probably self-critical. You're probably thinking to yourself, is this distortion? Is this projection? Is this, is this proportionate? You know, am I wrong to assume that about you?
No, not at all. Yeah, not at all. Yeah. You know me,
Yeah,
Sam. I know it's been a while, but
No,
you know
but some
me.
things don't change. Yeah, you've always had this elevated emotional intelligence about you. But if I'm being completely honest with you, I don't know to what level I was perceived by you as investing in knowing you deeper and understanding you deeper. I like to think that that's just who I am in relationship with other people, and that hopefully you felt like I was knowing you and caring to know you deeper. All that said, I did feel invested in you when we worked together when you were a younger person, and I did notice you which is one of the reasons why you're here right now. But I did notice you then as a person who just kind of processed things on a more elevated level and was thoughtful, but turning so much inward, and a person who was invested in evolution and evolving and becoming, I don't think that was off base, right? I mean, that's kind of who you are.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, for all the listeners, right now, like, I am transgender, and I knew at a very young age that I was different. So, like, from at a very, very, like, early point in my life, like, I had a grasp on just, like, oh, like, we're, like, constantly changing. And how you feel today and how you feel 3 or 4 years from now might not be exactly the same, might not even be close to the same. I mean, you see this all the time with, like, some, like, big, like, benchmarks in life, like, as soon as people have kids, or, like, as soon as somebody gets married, like, they're, like, certain things happen in people's lives, and, like, their personalities, like, sometimes will just, like, switch to a certain degree. Right. I even have, I have a few tattoos on my arms. Most of them are music related. One of my favorite bands is Tame Impala, and I have a tattoo on my arm that says, "They say people never change, but that's bullshit. They do." Yeah. And I just remember, like, hearing that line for the first time, and it's just like, when you hear something like in music and it just, like, hits you like a ton of bricks, and it just, like, took me back, and, like, double, like, on that, like, I was going through a breakup. And so just, like, in that moment when I heard that, I was perceiving that as just, like, like, oh, this is about her. And then, like, over time, I'm just like, oh no, this applies to everybody, and, like, this is actually about me. But yeah, no, I've always, like, been okay with the fact that, like, things that I'm okay with today or things that I believe in today, like, I might not believe in them 5 years from now, but that's because you get new information, and we always need to be able and willing to take in new information. Because if you hit a point in your life where you're just like, okay, this is me, I figured it out and I love it, like, you're doing it wrong.
Do you have anything to
Yeah, well, kind of. I don't know how much value this is going to add. It's more of just, like, recapping, in that I feel like a lot of what you were just talking about, and thank you for sharing that, by the way, does point back to Sam's original question of your first take on this phrase, is it affirming? And then I couldn't help but think about what that process must have been like, what that evolution must have been like for you. I'm going to ineloquently ask my question, so please forgive me. But it was like, when I use the word transition, what I mean is life transition more than the mechanical act, so to speak, right? So going from where you were to where you are right now, you're putting out energy and aspects of you out into the world. You're getting that information back from the environment that you're interacting with, that kind of circular process again. Did it help inform you of the direction that you wanted to go in? In other words, were people perceiving you the way that you would eventually get to being and to knowing yourself better in order to take those steps?
Yeah, and before you answer that question, I want to extrapolate on that question, because I had the same thing in my mind. It's a great question, Mike, and I hope that I'm not extrapolating incorrectly on your question by saying what I'm about to say. If I am, please correct me. But, I want to know the same thing. Like, I want to know, for me, I've had couple of my closest friends growing up, I had the privilege of being with them during the course of their coming of age, that they decided to come out as gay men. And I got two people in mind specifically. I always knew them, and they didn't change as people, you know what I mean? And they didn't change as their personalities didn't change. But I remember like witnessing them engage in this level of self-agency, of the whole coming out act. They wanted to bring intention to being understood in a certain way. So they would bring specific energy and emphasis to this. But I see that as not too different than other varieties of evolution in our personal to professional life. Even you can compare it to, you know what I mean? Like if you were a person who is covered in tattoos and played in punk rock bands your entire youth, and then got really, really interested in finance, and all of a sudden you found yourself, you know, having this opportunity to work at a finance bank, you know what I mean? And you're this guy who begins to cover up your tattoos and with white collared shirts, and you're changing your vernacular a little bit so you can assimilate and kind of fit in. You know, I kind of see that as similar, but I guess I want to know from you, like, how does this affect your process of...
I feel like process is the word in a lot of ways, right?
This has got to be an added burden, you know what I mean? An additional thing that you're thinking about all the time, or you're conscious of all the time, or do you allow yourself to just relax and not be burdened?
I was gonna say, or maybe you've got it figured out. You're super liberated. Like we're the ones with all the hangups to get through.
That's what I want to know.
I feel you. Like enlighten us.
I make the assumption that folks that are doing this kind of transition must be burdened with this interdialogue constantly about how to be perceived by others, and then I'm like, that's ridiculous. Who am I to make that assumption?
We don't know. And you're going to share your perspective with us. I mean, it's one perspective, right? Like we're not asking you to represent an entire category just from your perspective. Like, and that's why I say, like,
I'll do it.
Enlighten us.
I'll represent everybody.
You know what I'm trying to say. It's like, we're in a conversation with you. We're interested in your perspective.
Yeah. No, it's no, I definitely still struggle with it, much less so than I did even like a few years ago, which I'm like super, super grateful for. But I mean, I still very much have a hard time, like if I'm like going like out and, you know, just like getting like dressed up and trying to be perceived as like femme as possible, wearing makeup, the whole, you know, it's really hard for me to do that alone. Like, I feel so much more comfortable if I am at least with one of my friends. Then it's just like, I'm here with my friend, I'm having a good time, I really don't give a fuck about what else is going on around me. But if I'm like out in the world, one thing that, and this is always, even before I like, because I didn't even realize I was like transgender until like after high school. I knew I was different at a young age. You know, like it was all a very like slow process of just like, oh, like let's put on my mom's shirt. Let's do this. Let's do that. And it's like, you know, like you don't know until you try. And like, I didn't even know I was pansexual until somebody told me what that term was. And that's when like the light bulb went off in my head. I was just like, oh, that's me. I like everybody. Like, that's what I am. But I am in a good place now where like, you know, like I've been on estrogen for a few years, like my body is starting to change. And so like my like casual look, like I'm always wearing like tank tops from Target and like, you know, like flared jeans and like, you know, like, and I feel good. And like, that's like easy for me, but to like actually like go out in the world and like, you know, like really like go for it. Like I still like kind of need that safety blanket of just like, oh, I'm with like a friend or I'm like with my friends. And like that helps me out a lot. Because like I get misgendered every day. And I will probably still get misgendered after I get like my surgeries and everything like that. And that's just kind of like a part of like I've like come to like accept that. And like, you know, like I'm as okay with that as I think I can be. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's all ultimately just noise. And it comes down to like me just still continuing to have to do like the self-work of just like, you know, like eyes are always going to be on you. If you stand out in any way, shape, or form, people are going to look at you. And the people that are going to look at you with disdain or disgust, or actually even take it as far as like saying something like nasty to you, they got their own issues and they're in a much worse place than you are. And that's kind of like how I grapple with that and how I'm like okay with it.
Good for you. As somebody who doesn't, for any number of reasons, I mean, there are lots of different ways that people can draw attention to themselves, wanted or unwanted, right? But it's like by design or what have you, right? Just naturally or for some other reason. But I would imagine that based on what you just shared, it's like, let's say nonverbal, right? Are your receptors so tuned that you can actually read the reactions, even if they're not explicit or that clear? Like you just said, not all tension is good, bad, or sometimes even neutral, right? It's like there's something or someone is having attention drawn to them. It could be for any number of reasons. And so what I'm trying to ask you is, does it like elevate the sensitivity of it to the point where you can actually interpret the reactions on a much subtler level than I might? Does that make sense? You just said from friendly to unfriendly to hostile or whatever, right? Like even without the explicit carry through, do you go right to like, this is how this person's perceiving me, this is how that person's perceiving me, etc.?
Yeah, but it definitely depends on like the state of mind that I'm in. I think I'm much more like, I don't know if hyper aware or hyper fixated is the proper term, but like if I'm like not like in a good as place as like I could be, then I will like kind of like latch on to like any sort of like feelings that I'm feeling around me, and that's like that's the empath in me, you know.
Well,
perception is a mirror.
And then also, like, you know, that can feel destabilizing when it's about, you know, controlling how others perceive you or controlling how others experience you. And then there's this question, this internal question that my judgments might be flawed. My anger might be misdirected.
But you definitely brought it back to a place of agency and just kind of like owning your own, you know, it's like, hey, whatever, I'm good with this. I'm comfortable. So fuck y'all and however everybody's, you know, reacting to anything. And that goes for anybody, you know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say from a, you know, and albeit I recognize it as far less consequential, I'm sure, on a daily basis. But for me, you know, you knew me towards the end of my musical life, and prior to knowing you, I had been a full-time musician, you know, and that's the first half of my adult life. I was known as a singer. I was known as a musician, as a performer. And then I became a dad or a stepdad. And then I became, you know, a business owner and other things. And I have been, it's funny. I was just thinking about this, literally in the last 5 minutes while we're talking about this. I have been in my own transition of sorts over the last 15, 20 years. You know, it still trips me out. I flew out to California for a show. A friend of mine was putting on a show for a reunion for his old band. And this is a guy I was in a band with when we were kids, when we were, you know, teenagers and in our 20s. And we were a big enough deal back then that we had fans. And he had warned me ahead of time, some of those fans from back then are going to be at this show, and some of them might recognize you. And I was like, oh, that'll be weird. Boy, it was weird. It was weird. I mean, not in a bad way, but I'm saying like that is so far from who I am and how I identify myself now to have like grown middle-aged women approaching me like nervously, you know, you're Sam Wahl from the, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, you know, it was really funny, but it was also like I stepped outside of myself for a minute and was like, oh, you're like, I rarely think of myself as a musical person, as a musician. I'm so far from that now, by sheer evolution, not necessarily by conscious choice. And so I'm realizing that I really, you know, it's always there. And if I want to re-engage with that part of my identity legacy, that's always there for me to negotiate that and to reintegrate that into my life again, and so in having that thought process out loud just now, I'm realizing that like, it is kind of a holistic thing. Like we transition, I feel like, and I want to be corrected if I'm wrong here, transitioning feels like it's an expansion, but it doesn't necessarily replace something, right? We're not replacing who Vera used to be. We're expanding Vera into new versions of Vera. Would you say that that's fair to say that? Or would you say that this does feel like a sort of a negating or a replacement of who Vera was as a young person?
I think, no, I would go with the expansion part because I personally don't feel that I like my core values and my beliefs, like as a little kid, I like completely understood like we're all people, we're all meant to be here. The golden rule, just be kind to one another. There are certain things that, we do live you get older and you understand that we do live in a very gray world, but there are certain things that are black and white. And, like, even though like I am changing like my physical appearance, I'm just becoming the person that I was always meant to be. Yeah. It is an evolution.
I feel like you just
and we're all capable of that.
Evolution. They're
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I remember, this is something that's always stuck with me. Because like when we first met Sam and we were working together, like, I don't even think I wasn't even out yet. I didn't come out until like 2017, with being, trans. And I remember talking to Jenny. We were doing an event or something, and I was kind of like going through like a little bit of a rough patch. And because I had started, like, I initially was taking hormones when I was in Chicago, but then like towards the end of my Chicago stint, like I was not in a good place. I was in a terrible relationship. Like there's a reason I left, and we'll just leave it at that. But I remember like talking, to Jenny, and I was like, I don't even like, maybe I don't want to actually like, fully transition, maybe I don't even want to like be on hormones. And she said like, well, even if you don't like transition, like you still are Vera, like that is who you 100%. Are. And that just like stuck with me, Yeah. I got an email the other day from this like service that I use. It's called Plume, and people like microdose now. Microdosing is like such a huge fad, like with like drug use. Like people are microdosing their transitions now. People are microdosing estrogen. Like it's just like it's everywhere. But like everybody moves and evolves at their pace. Right. But as long as you are evolving as a human. More power to you.
I love that. Yeah, I wish I could put that on a billboard. Yeah, I love that.
Let's pull some money together. Let's go.
No, listen, I want to say this out loud. I had no expectation, and I really mean this when I say this. I did not have an attachment or an expectation of you coming on here and talking about your gender transition at all. I knew that you'd be a great person for this conversation based on the merits of who you are, 100%. Because I remember Bobby Mandich, and I could have had this same conversation with Bobby Mandich. You know what I mean? And,
right.
And so I really want you to know that this wasn't about going there. I'm grateful that you've decided to be so open and share so much, but it really didn't occur to me how truly poignant the topic is until we arrived here,
Yeah, awesome. No, there's a reason that's the one that jumped out at me.
Yeah, sure.
Theme.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if there's any meat on this bone, so to speak, right? But there's another, like it keeps coming up in the conversations that Sam and I are having. One of the reasons is a common denominator to a lot of them in terms of having musical backgrounds or being artists and creators and stuff like that, right? And I don't think that this is an extension of perception as a mirror, but it feels like it's adjacent enough to bring it up. But it's that whole saying of a work of art is completed by the viewer, right? Like that the creator of something makes it, but it's really up to the recipient and whoever's appreciating it to kind of finish it. Because once you've done your thing and you put it out into the world, it's up to the world to make of it what they will and to individually interpret it or have their own take on it. Does anything about that resonate with you or tie into the core maxim that we got together to talk about?
Well, the one thing I'll say in regards to that, I've become like a big, like, I mean, I've always enjoyed movies, but I feel like now, like in my 30s, like I'm a lot more into like film than I am into like music. And there's this film podcast that I listen to. It's called The Big Picture, and then The Rewatchables. It's all under the Ringer banner. It's a great, like, if you like any sort of entertainment, check them out. But there was an episode, and then so I was watching The Rewatchables, which is under the same network, and they go back and they watch movies, and like they kind of just like they watch it beforehand, and then they talk about it for like an hour and a half to like 2 hours, and they have categories. It's really fun. And they did Zodiac, which is a David Fincher movie, and they were quoting David Fincher on some things. And Zodiac's also one of my favorite movies of the 21st century. But David Fincher had a line where he said, movies are never finished, they're abandoned.
I love it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like that ties into what you were just like saying. It's just like, you know, like you don't even like I can meticulously like work on something and like never put it out, like, you know, like, and that's like totally my choice. But once you put something out into the world, it no longer belongs to you, especially in the internet age. Like,
that's one of the themes that keeps coming back in this.
Yeah. It lives in perpetuity forever, and it no longer is yours. You add something that is you, put it in there. But yeah, no, I mean, like that, you know, you get these like bursts of creativity, you get inspiration, but then like those are fleeting. You know, nobody, like, I've never met a single person in my entire life that's just like, oh yeah, I'm in it. Like, I'm like constantly like, I got this. Yeah, no, I don't think that exists in the world, because these vessels are constantly traveling and entering new people, entering new creatives. Just like, okay, it's your turn to do something.
Perpetual state of flow and creativity.
That sounds like a petri dish for cancer to me. Yeah. I'm not sure that's healthy. Yeah. Our friend Phil is a jazz musician, and he was making a comparison about being engaged in a session with other jazz musicians doing improvisational jazz. There's this trust, there's a level of shared adventurism in that, there's an abandonment, there's all kinds of elements that come into play in being relatable or being integral as part of a group improvisational effort, you know. And as he was talking about that, like, it kept occurring to me over and over, like, that's just life. That's just, we're all improvising, you know, in a studio together. And even if you are recording, you know, I mean, I'm basically just reiterating exactly what you just said in different terms, but, you know, even if you are recording segments of that, the minute you hit stop, like, you know, it doesn't give you any sort of proprietorship over what you recorded. You know, it's done. It's a moment. It's behind you. You know what I mean? It will have its own legacy and continue perhaps to have trajectories of effect on other people who witness it. There is no beginning and there is no end. And it's, we're all just waking up each day and stepping into a new river every day, right? You know?
This is also very sorry, butting up very closely against some Spinal Tap-isms here. I mean, like, we can get all heavy and stuff, right? But I do want to just throw out there that we're getting a little bit of, you know, of Nigel saying, you know, and what's behind that, and what's behind what's stopping it, and what's behind what's stopping it. So that just popped into my brain, and I figured it.
That's great. On this call. So you're saying the podcast is in danger of going to 11, is what you're saying? Got it.
Yes, or also Tapish. It's a fine line between clever and stupid. So,
none more black is what comes to mind for me. Yeah, none more black. How much more black could this record be? The answer is none more. None more black.
There you go. They reached the end.
Well, I mean, I don't, Mike, do you have any? I don't really know where else to go with this. I mean, I feel like I'm satiated.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm growing up with, in a half German household with some exposure to the language and having traveled there a bit and getting C's, D's, and occasional F's in multiple years of German in junior high and high school. For some reason, one of the 7 phrases that stuck with me, and that includes, 20 plus trips to the country, is Ich bin satt, which translated as I am sated, which as an 8th grader, even once you translate it into English, I'm so dumb I needed to look up what the English word meant that I just learned in another language, right? So to hear it's just weird because sated isn't a word that you hear a lot. So when you just said that you were, I was like, it just put me right back into the desk that I sat in, you know what I mean? Like in 8th grade hearing that. But yeah, I also am sated, to a large degree, but I would yield to our guest to invite you to expand on or add anything or extend the conversation in any direction that you'd like to, or say, I've had enough of you two. Peace out,
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that I did this. And I'm also really glad Sam called me and he was like, it just dawned on me that we actually haven't spoken in however many years, and we were able to talk on the phone, and we were able to catch up a little bit, and I'm so glad that we did that before we did this. And this has been fantastic. Me and just a little bit more backstory on me and Sam, we have spent many hours in a U-Haul, and we would just always have the best conversations and just never a dull moment. And once he reached out to me about this, I was just like, absolutely, because I know exactly how this will go.
It means a lot to me to be remembered that way. I appreciate that.
I feel like that's also kind of at least to this point, a recurring kind of theme in these conversations. Sam and I, even though we never really disconnected, part of the impetus for doing this was connecting for longer, more meaningful conversations. And then the idea was to kind of extend that out to a circle of people that we both probably felt similarly about, or that would make for great additions to those conversations. And so hearing that description of your dynamic and relationship with Sam is basically that's what we set out to do. Now, how well or poorly we're doing it is, not up to us, apparently, you know what I mean? Because once we put it out there, it's not ours anymore. But regardless, we're trying to enjoy the process and the conversations and learning from other people's perspective that we already have a pretty good idea are going to make it a more interesting, opportunity for growth kind of conversation. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure, truly.
I want to say in parting before we stop recording this, I'm accustomed to being in a mode of big brother to you, and I'm not going to deny myself that privilege. I just want to say that people are going to be unkind. People are going to be afraid. People behave in various ways. People totalize other human beings into storylines that they are telling themselves in order for them to feel safe, or whatever reasons there are. I love seeing you in this mode. I love feeling reassured that my old friend is well, and my old friend is taking good care of herself, and that she's also not needing other human beings to be superhumans in order for her to see a path for herself. I honestly feel like you are the kind of person, and you were this person when I knew you back when, and you're still this person, but you're the path maker. And I'm so happy to find you still in that space, and that you're still that person enjoying that superpower.
Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate that. Like,
thank you.
I hope you already know this, but like the years that we spent working together and getting to know each other and all the talks that we had, like it stuck with me in a major way. I appreciate people who just like wear their hearts on their sleeves and like aren't afraid to like expel their emotions. And yeah, so thank you. And thank you for having me on.
Rock and roll. I love it. I appreciate it. And let's not be strangers moving forward. This is a great segue into being more accountable.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you guys need a third chair, if you can't find a guest for a topic, I will happily come back on. This was fun.
Great. Love it. Yeah.
Thanks for spending part of your day with us. If this conversation resonated with you, please consider sharing it with a friend who might appreciate it. That's how the show grows, one meaningful connection at a time. And remember, you can always email us at info@maximeqpodcast.com, whether it's to suggest a topic, offer feedback, or just to say hello. Until next time, take care and make it a great day.